Welcome! In this explainer, we are going to be breaking down the official rulebook that's designed to protect one of Kenya's most vital resources. It's clean water. These are the rules that affect pretty much everything, from the water in your glass to the rivers that flow right across the country.
It's a really critical question when you think about it. When you turn on the tap, or go for a swim in a lake, or even eat food from a farm that uses irrigation, what is it that guarantees that water is actually safe? Well, the answer is in a pretty comprehensive legal framework that was set up almost 2 decades ago.
So, what exactly is this plan? The official name is a bit of a mouthful. The Environmental Management and Coordination Water Quality Regulations of 2006. But you can really just think of it as the master plan for how Kenya actively protects its water to keep it clean and safe for absolutely everyone. At its very core, this whole document is like a legal shield. And make no mistake, this isn't just a list of friendly suggestions. It is a legally binding set of rules under the country's main environmental law. It creates clear standards and, real obligations to stop pollution before it can even start.
And who do these rules apply to? Well, basically everyone. The sheer scope of these regulations is pretty incredible. This isn't just about factories. It covers your drinking water, big industries, farms, and even the places we all go for fun. If it involves water, you can bet these rules have something to say about it.
Okay, so let's zoom in on what is probably the most personal part of these rules for all of us: the water that comes directly from our taps and the sources that supply it.
And right at the beginning, the law lays down this really powerful statement. It basically puts the responsibility on every single person. It's not just about companies or the government. This makes protecting water a foundational, shared duty for everyone.
So how do they get specific? Well, the regulations have these detailed appendices, which are called schedules. This table here gives you a little taste of what's in the first schedule. It sets these really strict, non-negotiable limits. And the thing that just jumps out is the zero-tolerance standard for E. coli. It means our main water sources should have absolutely zero trace of this nasty bacteria. Period.
All right, so that's our homes covered. But what about the big players, like businesses, factories, and sewage systems? How do the regulations handle the potential pollution from them? This is where a whole licensing system kicks in.
See, it's not a free-for-all. If an industry wants to legally release wastewater, they have to follow this clear 3-step process. First, you'll apply for a license. Second, you have to prove your discharge meets the really tough quality standards. And third, you have to constantly monitor it and report back. It's basically like getting a permission slip that's governed by some very strict environmental law.
Now here's a really smart part of the law. The rules are not a blunt instrument. They're nuanced. They're way tougher if you're discharging wastewater directly into a river or a lake, where the impact on fish and plants is immediate. The standards are more lenient if you're sending that water to a public treatment plant first. And that just makes sense, right? Because that facility is specifically built to handle a higher load of pollutants.
But hey, it's not just about what comes out of our taps or out of factories. The regulations also protect the water that we rely on for our food and even for recreation.
The law is just incredibly thorough. It sets quality guidelines for water used to grow our food. It demands these protective buffer zones for big irrigation projects to prevent runoff. And it even sets quality standards for lakes and rivers where people swim. The goal is to ensure safety right across the board, whether you're eating a meal or just going for a dip.
We all know a rulebook is only as good as its enforcement. So how do they actually make sure people are following the rules? Let's take a look at how these regulations are actually put into practice.
Remember those schedules we talked about? Well, check this out. The 4th schedule provides this super detailed guide, and it shows that monitoring is not one-size-fits-all. A textile factory, for example, has to test for chromium because it's used in dyes. But a hotel or a dairy, nope, they don't. This kind of tailored approach makes enforcement way more efficient and targeted to the real risks of each industry.
So what happens if you break the rules? Well, this law has teeth. The regulations lay out a maximum fine of 500,000 Kenyan shillings. That's a pretty significant penalty, and it's designed to give these rules some real legal weight and act as a very powerful financial deterrent.
And it doesn't even stop with one-time fines. There's also an ongoing cost to stay in compliance. A lot of facilities have to pay a pretty hefty annual license fee. We're talking up to 100,000 shillings just for the right to discharge their treated wastewater. This creates a continuous financial reason to keep their standards high, year after year.
So, after looking at all these rules and standards and fees, what's the big takeaway here? What's the crucial point we should all remember from this?
At the end of the day, this legal document isn't really about stopping industry or development. It's about finding that balance. It provides a critical framework to manage growth responsibly. You can think of it as a blueprint, one that's designed to protect public health and preserve Kenya's natural beauty for generations to come.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Having the rules in place is absolutely the essential first step. But the ongoing challenge for both regulators and for citizens is making sure that this blueprint is actually being followed every single day. Because having the plan on paper is one thing, but turning those words into clean water in our rivers, our lakes, and our taps, that's the real work.